Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you are viewing this. As in, for my case, it is good afternoon. Alright, the following is my topic that I selected from my technical report. It is how to lower the high crime rate in Corpus Christi. Before we dive into that, here's a little bit about me. My name is Juan Reyes Jr. I am from a small border town named Zapata, Texas. I am currently majoring in political science with a minor in criminal justice. As for my future aspirations that I hold, I want to work for the FBI, either as an intelligence analyst or a detective. Either or, I would be incredibly happy to hold the position. After I work 20 years with the federal government, I intend to retire and pursue the second part of my aspirations, which is to run for some sort of political office. You know, people say to shoot for the stars, and that is exactly what I'm gonna do because my ultimate goal is to run for the presidency. And I don't like setting goals that I don't believe I can achieve. So, the goals that I have selected or aspirations that I am following might be a little bit big, but I know and I am extremely confident that I can achieve the following aspirations. And that's a little bit about me. Alright, now to dive in. What is the issue? Corpus Christi has been facing high levels of crime within the community for several years. This includes high levels of violent and property crimes. Not being from Corpus Christi, as soon as I got here, or from the Corpus Christi area, as soon as I got here, my eyes were opened because it seemed like every night on the local news I heard of some sort of horrible crime being committed every night. And I thought maybe I just came at a bad time. But no, I started asking around my friends and people that live here or around the area, and they told me that this is a common occurrence, and I was left in shock. Like, this is a big issue, and it's really devastating what is happening in the community. Why is Corpus Christi experiencing this? Well, the high crime rates in Corpus Christi can be attributed due to insufficient funding, which results in one, lack of personnel. You know, if, if you don't have enough money, you can't hire enough workers or officers, and that leads a lot of places to be unsupervised, which encourages criminals to commit the horrible acts. Number two, low levels of security surveillance. And number three, old or outdated equipment. That one's really important because you have cops driving around in old cars. They're while criminals are driving brand new cars that they either stole or bought, and they're not fast enough to catch them. And then the other equipment is any weapons that they might hold. You know, there are a lot of instances where criminals are or where the cops are outgunned by criminals, and that should never happen. That's horrible to hear. And it forces unhappy and unmotivated workers. Due to the lack of funding, many officers cannot receive full or competitive wages as compared to other counties, and that leaves a lot of people discouraged or unmotivated to fulfill their duties. Alright, here's by the numbers. Below are the criminal crime rates comparing the criminal crime rates in Corpus Christi to those of the United States. And the numbers below show us that the Corpus Christi crime rates per 1,000 are substantially higher than they are in the United States, in all the following categories except in murder, where they lose about zero point zero 0.01. But everywhere else, the crime rates are way higher in Corpus Christi than they are in the United States, sometimes even twice as higher. This portrays that change needs to be made. Now, for the property crime rates, comparing Corpus Christi and the United States, and the same trends follow that in Corpus Christi the property crime rates are substantially higher than they are in the United States, sometimes even twice as high as you can see here in burglary, and then by 10% in theft, and then by 1% in motor vehicle theft. They're substantially higher in Corpus Christi than they are in the United States, and this illustrates that something is being done wrong and something does in fact need to change within the community. Okay, what do the numbers tell us? The numbers clearly portray that Corpus Christi is experiencing higher levels of crime than the rest of the United States, with some categories experiencing double the rates in Corpus than in the United States. That is horrible. We truly have a problem here in the Corpus Christi area, and it's obvious that change needs to be made and adjustments need to occur. Solution. After discussing the topic with criminal justice professors at TAMUK, in addition to officers working for the CCPD or Corpus Christi Police Department, I have come up with a 5-phase plan that addresses all the issues at hand. It addresses all the issues that Corpus Christi Police Department is facing, such as lack in funding, shortage in officers, old, outdated equipment, all that, and social awareness that is important as well. Okay, here's the 5-phase plan before we dive in deeper into it. The first one is increase funding, seek more federal assistance. Number 2, dispatch a high number of officers in lower income areas. Number 3, target and educate the youth. 4, build more rehab centers. 5, spread awareness and highly encourage neighborhood watches. All of these are in order. I should note that as well. Right, phase 1, increase funding and seek more federal assistance. Increasing funding will allow more officers to be hired by the police department and the ability to obtain better equipment. Seeking help from the federal government will allow temporary monetary relief to accommodate these expenses. When I talk about federal government assistance, I talk about the National Guard, which has been deployed before by Governor Greg Abbott to help secure the border. And I believe the crime rates are so high in Corpus that it constitutes the same need or the same dangerous needs for more assistance from the federal government in the Corpus Christi area to help fight criminals as it does fighting illegal immigrants in the border. And that'll allow more people or more feet on the ground to help secure the border. Not the border, Corpus Christi and the community. And it will also allow monetary relief as well. Phase 2, dispatch a high number of officers in lower income areas. Phase 2 is a continuation of Phase 1, which is the proper distribution of the newly acquired resources. Studies show that in the years 2008 through 2012, lower income households had double the rate of violent victimizations as higher income households. So, allocating the new resources to lower income areas would address heavily burdened areas quicker. Resources are limited. We live in a world where resources run out quickly, if not distributed wisely. So, addressing the areas that have higher crime or have higher occurrences of crime would be most effective in distributing all the newly acquired resources and personnel and help drive down the crime in a quicker, more efficient way. Phase 3, target and educate the youth. Habits formed in our youth years tend to stick with us in our adult life. Thus, addressing the issue before it becomes a problem is a highly effective way at lowering the chances of future criminals. When we are young, we are more vulnerable and we are easier to manipulate than in our older years. So that's why when we form habits in our youth, they tend to stick with us throughout our whole lifetime. And when we're adults, I know I have a bad habit of eating candies in the morning, and that came from when I was a little kid. I still hold those bad habits even to this day. And, it's bad, but that's just the way I was conditioned to when I was a kid. The same thing relates to these criminals. These young people are exposed to crimes and they think, or they're not aware of the consequences that they might hold, and they keep on falling down that awful road, that leads to an increase in criminals. Phase 4 is to build more rehab centers. This one is really important and perhaps the one that I uh, consider more urgent. A key component in the 5 phase plan, only coming late due to funding issues. Many criminals have addiction problems, and many people turn to criminals due to addictions. Everywhere you go, you see people committing crimes, and you will more than likely see them like doing hard drugs or stealing hard drugs, and it is awful to see. Treating these patients as ill rather than criminals would help alleviate the problem because sending them to jail actually is more expensive than building rehab centers as well. And another bad thing is people go into, jail or prison and they come out worse than initially when they first came in. So I believe building more rehab centers will really help lower the crime rates in Corpus Christi. Phase 5, which is the last one, spread awareness and highly encourage neighborhood watches. When the 5th phase is reached, the crime rate will already be significantly lowered. This phase aims at keeping crimes low and perhaps lower them even further through educating the general public on past troubles faced. This phase will also encourage community involvement through neighborhood watches. This last phase is like basically a nail in the coffin. Crime rates will already be lowered significantly, as it is said in the slide, but we want to keep it that way. We don't want it to rise again later on. By educating the general public on the horrible past, I believe people will be more inclined to, do good and stay away from committing these crimes. And it's not being naive or anything, it's just people tend to rise to the occasion when needed to in order to uh, have a better way of life. So I believe this one's important. And by uh, encouraging neighborhood watches, you involve the community in fighting. They don't have to rely on the officers in uniforms. They can take action into their own hands and they can help secure their properties and their communities and protect their families. Conclusion. Being new to the area and new to high crime, I was left terrified due to the crime situation in Corpus Christi. It is horrible what is happening, and it is clear why these crimes are so rampant. This 5 phase plan is far from perfect, but it targets the missing pieces that Corpus Christi Police Department faces today. I highly recommend that they follow this 5 phase plan. As it says there in the slide, it is far from perfect. No, I'll admit it is far from perfect. Well, maybe not far, but it is not perfect. But it is good, and it will help drive down crime. This 5 phase plan was made after extensive research and asking around in the community, like what changes need to be made, what inconsistencies are being faced by the Corpus Christi Police Department. And being new to crime as an outsider, I believe I am better able to see things that people that live here cannot see themselves. So, and yes, as it says there as well, I was left terrified, because back in my hometown, I never experienced high crime like this at this level. So as soon as I got here, I knew something was different, and I knew change needed to be made, and I hope it really does, because this is a wonderful area, and I have enjoyed being here at Temuk. And I just hope nothing but the best. And here are my sources. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.